Film Club.
Both had a chop. Both had a beard chop. You look like you lost weight.
I just cut my hair.
I thought it looked shorter.
Thank you very much for joining this episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. To my right, as always, it's the weight loss guru himself, Andy Donaldson. There's a difference between weight and hair, although hair does contribute to weight. Not a great deal, but technically, I lost weight. Every single week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us. We dive into some of cinema's best. Fucking back here to talk it out.
Yes, we do.
Did you like that?
Go on.
I just felt it was a little monotone at the beginning, so I'd spice it up a little.
I'm sure you did.
This week, Silence of the Lambs.
The Silence of the Lambs.
Sorry, The Silence of the Lambs.
So, I said it last week.
Have you seen Silence of the Lambs before?
Yeah, I've seen it many times.
Okay.
It's been a long time since last saw it.
I had not. And this is like I said to you last week, I saw Silence of the Lambs in pieces everywhere. Like I saw scenes from here and bits from there, and I kind of knew the overarching narrative. But this is my first time sitting down and watching Silence of the Lambs. And the one thing I definitely want to start off today with is Anthony Hopkins. Because how can you not?
It was just like, do I look stupid? That's it.
That's exactly what it is. How would you start a Silence of the Lambs conversation with anything other than Anthony Hopkins?
This is what probably I would say he's my favourite actor out there. And whilst I haven't seen many films with him, I think this film is an example of why he's just gone to the top spot, or like pretty much on the top spot. Yeah, a few others as well.
There's definitely some others, and actually one that we're going to be taking a look at next week, but you have to wait until the end of the episode to find out which one that is.
Yeah, there's one called The World's Fastest Indian as well, which is fantastic.
And even recently, like with Westworld.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. Great shout.
Again,
Westworld, yeah.
Excellent work.
Anyway, Anthony Hopkins, he actually read this when I was doing a little bit of research into it. He was I think it's the shortest film time. What's the word? Screen time.
Temporal.
No, what the hell?
Screen time, yeah. That's what you're talking about.
It's the smallest. He won an Academy Award for Best Actor, yeah? And he was the one who had the smallest amount of screen time. I think it's 15 minutes overall in the film.
Yeah, actually. So, since I hadn't seen the whole fabric of the film, it was really...
You probably didn't know that, did you?
Weird seeing how little he was in it. I was expecting more of him.
And you have this... there's a really good scene, actually, I want to talk to you about Anthony Hopkins. So, obviously, he plays Hannibal Lecter, the kind of, like... Yeah, the villain who isn't a villain. He's also, like, kind of the...
weirdly called? Sort of like an anti-hero.
Yeah, an anti-hero. What's it called in the three-act trilogy? What's Obi-Wan? The mentor. He's like a mentor in this as well. That's the word I was looking for, mentor. He's like a mentor villain kind of thing to Clarice Starling, who plays Clarice Starling. Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling. Anyway, and you have this first introduction of the scene where she goes down and goes to this like kind of dungy, kind of horrible prison place.
Which is probably like the iconic scene from Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. Arguably is this interrogation scene.
Yeah. And then she goes over and you just see... It's weird because everyone else is like, oh, I like this crazy. And you just see this cage, it's clear, it's not bars like this. And you just see this man just watch her go in, he's stood still, his head moves with a... and it just, immediately, you just get chills in your back because you know this guy's sinister, especially with you know what this guy's capable of. Like
it's a nice touch of like production design storytelling as well, because to have these people who are very clearly crazy and dangerous behind regular bars, but this guy who looks normal and appears to be pleasant in conversation is behind a higher security glass.
Yeah. So there's all this, and then obviously you have that amazing scene where he's just like, the last person who tried me on, I ate his liver with these beans. Like that, and which is iconic, which is improvised, by the way.
While on the subject of that scene, we have this amazing use of framing and this amazing use of editing to really just show the push and pull that happens throughout that entire dynamic. Like at certain times, there's like she's giving ground, he's giving ground, she fights back, and like the frame will dictate her strength and her power in that conversation. It's really clever stuff.
So so it goes into this, and then obviously they build a relationship. She goes away. A prisoner's horrible to her, then he comes back and he's like, no, you know what, that's crap, I won't do that. Gives her a bit of, essentially, to try and break it down to the northern kind of dialect. And then he ends up helping her out, and later throughout the film, it's about her finding Buffalo Bill, which then comes on to a later scene, which she tries to get him a better deal, so he'll help her if she helps him out, sort of thing, anyway. So the idea is he's going to move on. That deal, in some way, by the warden gets... the warden makes his own deal with Lecter anyway. So it leads him to this his cage, remember? And it's a bit like, it's a nicer environment, everything like that, but the warden still has a bit of control. And I think Starling can't really see him because I know they shot her out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you do have this amazing conversation before they get rid of it, and it's probably my favourite scene in the film. I actually watched it again today, and I kept rewinding it and watching it again, kept rewinding it. And it's where it's the quid pro quo, isn't it? You tell me something about yourself, and I'll tell you something about the case. Because that's Lecter through and through. He wants to know the individual.
Yeah.
And then she comes round, and he's obviously delved into it. What's the worst moment in your life is when my father died. He went to this ranch. Why did you run away from the ranch? He did it at night. Something happened, and she breaks down this story of how, the name of the film, the film's namesake is The Sounds of the Lambs. She heard the lambs before the slaughter, that horrible, the scream and everything like that. She wanted to save one. And if you look again, going to framing and editing, all my days, right? So she's there, and the camera's zooming in like this, and then you've got Lecter, and it's zooming in, and it's like his face is coming up more there, and then he focuses on her, and you hear Hopkins in the background talking. Next shot, you just see Hopkins like proper in full frame. His head's in the whole frame, and he's staring down like that, and he's just like talking. He wants to know more, and it's the most sinister thing ever.
Yeah,
like I was amazed watching that. I was absolutely like.
And I think what makes it so powerful is the sinister elements through simplicity.
Yeah.
Because they're not, for the most of this film, they're not showing Hannibal Lecter doing horrible things. They're implying it, they're inferring it, and then he just totally embodies that element.
Well, the great thing about Anthony Hopkins is he's one of these kind of method actors where he lives into that role. When he's doing a role, he kind of lives that for the majority. It's a bit like Daniel
Day-Lewis. So he ate people for 3 months.
Well, yeah, but to some extent. But imagine his wife living with him. I think there's many articles about like, how's your wife taken like this? But he lives on set, so to Jodie Foster, he will be like Hannibal Lecter. I think there's articles there saying, she was quite creeped out by him. But then after, he was like, you're all right, sorry about that. It's just about the film.
And no one saw his wife again.
But
he had some really nice, meaty-looking sandwiches on set, though.
Cool. Yeah. So I think it's just it's Anthony Hopkins in one of his best performances ever, and for the fact that he's on that for 15 minutes and we've just spoken this long,
that's great.
And we have so much more to say about him. It just shows just how incredible he is.
The one that gets lost in the shuffle a little bit with this film, and really, really shouldn't, is Jodie Foster.
Do you reckon?
Because she's excellent.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you meant that implying in a bad way. She's absolutely fantastic.
Like, people don't talk about how great she is, I think.
She's so fantastic, yeah.
It's very, very easy to get overshadowed by someone like Anthony Hopkins, especially in this like type of role. And she gets a little bit of a more thankless role. And like her job is to kind of be more of an everyman and react to things, whereas he gets to play around and chew the scenery a little bit.
Yes, but then you have that amazing scene towards the end where she's going to the house and she puts everything together. She's getting all this recognition because the film is a lot about like sexuality as well, or like kind of it's more Buffalo Bill's sexuality, but like
even that idea of like thematically being about sexuality is kind of represented in her being such a strong female character in the era it's made in.
Exactly. Despite like when she goes to see the police officers and it's like, away from the woman and stuff like that.
Yep.
And yet she's leading the way and she's like leading this investigation. Her boss, she's not even an FBI agent, and her boss is like this. But then it comes to that end scene where she deduces that who Buffalo Bill actually is. She sees all the moths and stuff like that, and then you have this like. What?
Not okay with it. Too many moths in this film. Too many moths.
He's scared of moths. Right. I forgot about that actually. That's hilarious. That's actually hilarious. So she's going through.
Thick, crunchy moths as well.
So she's going through, and this is the scene in the dark and everything like that, and it comes down, and it's just how everything comes together, and it's just you hear her breathing, and she just really, really gives you the idea of just horrible, frightened, like kind of like just everything around you is just atmospheric, and she's just like shit scared. She's absolutely terrified. Which is a stark contrast to her early in the film, where she's really confident. Yes, she's a recruit, but like the way she deals with Lecter, the way how she deals with a policeman and stuff, like you'd be anywhere just with us like that. And it's depth. There's so much depth to the character. So yes, whilst Anthony Hopkins can do all these different things and play about that role, I think it's not really. Yes, you might get shadowed, but I think it's not a bad thing to have to be the character of Clarice Starling, because. Yeah. There is absolute load of depth there.
It's
and
excellent.
She does it so well.
It's absolutely excellent, and I think she does it on a much more subtle scale than he does.
Yep.
Which can sometimes be like even more challenging. So in terms of characters, we've got one more big one really. Buffalo Bill.
Yep.
Played by.
I recognised it. It reminded me of Javier Bardem, but I don't think it is.
Javier Bardem? No, it's not Javier Bardem.
It is. I think it's Ted.
Although I was listening to a book recently on Javier Bardem.
Ted Levine.
And I was actually a little bit shocked in the way they introduce him in the film, because he gets introduced in a very sort of everyman way. You know, like they don't hide his face for a long time. They don't pretend like he's this monster in the shadows. We don't find out who it is when she finds out who it is. We know long before.
Yeah.
And there's something almost creepier about that in some ways.
Well, this is why one of the reasons I wanted to do this film, after the last few films I've been predicting who it was, I wanted something where you know who it is. And that's what gets more creepy. The fact you know who it is, what he's capable of, and how he reacts with his environment, whether it's him or even Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, and the sort of the weird expression of his sexuality through his violent acts as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I'm sure I would be interested to know how the LGBTQ plus communities react to this sort of thing, because I cannot imagine it's well.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's a sort of film. I feel like this. Stick with me, right? If you can remake Silence of the Lambs, not remake it, but if you make Silence of the Lambs for the very first time in 50 years' time, when we're all cool with whether you're transgender, male, female, extra, whatever, if at the point which the world's got on board with that, then you make Silence of the Lambs, I think everybody loves it. Because it's not about how weird this transgender guy is. I don't think that's how the filmmakers intended it.
It's not just a side note, the filmmakers intended that the way he was brought up, he hated himself so much, so he wanted to be the complete opposite person to who he was brought up as. So he was brought up obviously as a man. So in his mind, he wanted to become a woman because that's so far removed from what he actually was.
Yeah.
And that is association of what he was is with his shit upbringing and his abuse.
So I didn't take this to be a sort of downtrod of the transgender community in any way. And it's just a weird sort of relic of its time a little bit in that respect. I don't think someone would make this quite in the same way now because it insinuates a lot through that sort of ideology. But if you can strip away all the politics of it, strip away all the politics of how we want to identify and how communities are represented, it really works.
Yep.
Because you're right, because of how it's this guy who desperately wants to be something else.
Yep.
And is expressing that through a multitude of ways. And then there's one extra character I wanted to make a mention of here. Catherine.
Catherine?
Catherine should have died.
Oh, do you reckon?
Catherine should have died.
Because she's so annoying.
The point at which Catherine is sitting in a well and is shouting, "Precious!
Yeah.
Oh, precious!" Fucking kill that bitch right there. And then when Jodie Foster comes in to save her and she's like, "Yo, I'm here, FBI, you're safe, don't worry. I've got to go find the killer who's on the loose still around this house and could walk in at any moment." And she's like, "Don't leave me, you bitch." I get it. You're scared. Shut the fuck up.
But I think by keeping her alive, then you add to Clarice Starling's sterling record, and you add to the fact that she's this amazing hero that can achieve so much.
Yeah, I'm being facetious.
Yeah, she was annoying. I agree, especially with the "you bitch." I was like, "Whoa, you don't call our Clarice a bitch, right? Yeah, get away from that." Just going back on our previous device thing we were on about, which is framing. Did you notice it had a very Peep Show kind of camera work?
This constant use of point of view shots rather than over the shoulder is a really interesting way of getting things into a very sort of intense situation.
Because I don't see many films doing that.
No, and to try and put you inside the head of the characters as well. Yeah. Especially the first third of this film is very much first person instead of over the shoulder. And there's one little moment where this really works, and I love it. It's right after they've had that conversation with the police chief, where Clarice is left in the room and they go off to talk because she's female. When they get back in the car, and her boss leans over and he
he's
says,
like that, isn't he?
He says, I was just doing that, to try and get his guard down. Yeah. And she says, doesn't matter. What you do represents how they're going to react. In that moment, those two characters finally get to share the frame while they're having a conversation, and it's a lovely way of showing a respect for one another. Yeah, that she's kind of
especially
earned.
the way his head's leaned back, right next to hers, is in they're quite close, but not in that way. Yeah, like you said, respect.
It's a really really nice technique.
There's a really good. This film's not really noted for its music, but it is. It's got a really good eerie soundtrack, but it's kind of minimal, and it's more so to do with the sound effects. The sound of this film is absolutely amazing, especially going through those scenes of initially in the prison, or when she's in the house and you just have the pipes churning. You have the horrible kind of spooky hollow rooms and atmosphere. So the sound is incredible, but they do have a really good piece of music here. I think it's Bach, however you pronounce it. It's when Hopkins is in that new cell and he's listening to it just before just before he leaves. It reminds me a bit of Clockwork Orange, yeah? You know how they sing in the rain with violence. So he's in the cell and he's listening to music and he gets this really nice dinner. You can see what I love about it is the sophistication of Lecter. Yeah? This guy, he's sophisticated. To contrast that, the guard come in like this and he plans his escape. He bites someone's face off. He then ties someone up, with his wings like that, like an angel.
Yeah. And
then he fucking takes someone's mask off, puts it on himself. All pretty much to this soundtrack, to this classical music.
And it's this perfect blend of aggression, intelligence, and theatrics.
Absolutely.
Which makes his character.
Absolutely.
And that last sort of twist, by the way, it's interesting to see how this sort of film has influenced so much stuff since it's come out. Whether it's crime drama, whether it's sort of influencing just the way people try and create an iconic villain.
Yeah.
And even down to you can see it in films, you can see it in comic books, you can see it in TV, you can see it in a whole bunch of different mediums. And it's fascinating tracing that back to a character who, as you mentioned earlier, only has 15 minutes of screen time.
It is iconic. Little side note, Howard Shaw did actually do the music for this. So fantastic job.
Do I know Howard Shaw?
Yes, you do. You don't mind, not by name. He did the music for Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Howard Shaw, son. Well played. Trilogy Child last night was amazing. I think it really will go down as one of the best films ever. Such legacy to this film. Maybe because the reason I wanted to do it is because we have this villain that we know that is always surprising us with new things, and he's so sinister and yet so sophisticated, and yet we don't have this guessing game that I've been getting annoyed with as of late.
It's easy watching as well as the thing.
Oh my god, yeah.
So it's not a tasking film. It's not a. I apologize. What I'm about to say. It's not a clever film. It's a restrained film, and it's a subtly intelligent film.
Yep.
It really sort of knows what it wants to make and makes that thing very, very well.
Yep.
Doesn't try to go outside the box too much. Very, very easy watching. Very good, entertaining film.
Yep.
But anyway, there is The Silence of the Lambs. I put the on that one. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of The Silence of the Lambs, or you can hit us up on Twitter, as always. We will be back, though, once again next week, where we're taking a look at another Anthony Hopkins performance in...
I haven't seen.
The Elephant Man.
David Lynch. I haven't seen his stuff since Mulholland Drive.
Returning to Lynch.
Yeah, interesting.
Get watching, and we'll see you back here next week. Bye.